of accountability and support. And the first item that we have to do is approve the minutes. So I'll need a motion on that. Oh, Melissa, could you give us the dates? Leslie, could you give me the dates of the 2 meetings we're doing?
We're doing September 22nd, 2021, and then October 14th, 2021.
Okay. So I move to approve the minutes for October 14th and September 22nd.
Well, unfortunately, I have to abstain from both of them because neither of them was I there for.
That's right. Oh.
So Leslie, this is what we discussed. Can I second? And then just so Malia and Woody, you know that I did question this because we wouldn't have the members that were in the meeting then have no longer on this committee, and then we have new members. And Leslie, am I correct that we just can go ahead and vote, and it just goes in as an abstain, and it clears the minutes anyways? Is that correct?
Voting is, so you could abstain the vote. There's no problem with that, but if someone can just do the motion, it doesn't necessarily mean it's voting. It's just opening it up that it can be voted on.
Oh, okay. So Malia can second.
You can second, but then I would take your vote as abstain.
Okay.
And then I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And then Malia's abstaining. Did that suffice that, Leslie?
Yes,
this was a big discussion this week.
Yes, Malia is abstaining, and Woody and the chair are voting. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. That won't happen again for a couple of more years. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss our toolkit.
Excellent. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. While I'm starting with introductions, I'll have Greg start sharing his screen for the presentation. My name is Lisa Lomenzo, Division Director in the Turnaround Office, and we are here today to talk to you about the Needs Assessment Toolkit. Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Carol Dibble, who will be joining me and Greg Dresko today as leads of this project in the development of the toolkit. We are also joined by Irene Parisi, Chief Academic Officer. So in school improvement, we often hear about action plans, district improvement plans, school improvement plans, and then the resources that you need to enact those plans. However, an often overlooked part of the planning is determining what the need is and what is truly the root cause that we are planning to address. The plans that are most successful address the root causes. And what happens if you overlook this process in planning is you run the risk of allocating resources ineffectively. So what is the Needs Assessment Toolkit? In essence, it's a process to determine a community's strengths, needs, and also how to best allocate resources, including money, people, facilities, and so forth. So the next question comes to why. Why is this important? And in addition to it being a requirement of ESSA, in practice, ultimately, this is important because if you know the root cause, then you can direct the resources to address the challenges. And you can also leverage the strengths that exist. I think oftentimes people think Needs Assessment Toolkit and they immediately go to the deficit, where in this toolkit that we created, we also look at those strengths and how you can leverage those. So this toolkit, in essence, it was developed to help school and district leaders engage in that process. And we were very intentional about making sure that it's practical and actionable. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Carol and Greg, and they'll share with you a bit more about the process that we embarked on to develop the toolkit, who we engaged, and also give you a brief overview of the toolkit itself, which is housed on our website. Carol?
Thank you. Had to get off of mute there for a moment. So good afternoon. I am really glad to be here with you. I want to begin by sharing how this toolkit was developed. As we began the process, we needed to know what resources were out there and look at what other states were doing to guide systems to engage in root cause analysis. So, Greg conducted a landscape analysis of the resources available across the country. And as we reviewed these resources, we found that there were some common components. We also found that there were many structures and varied guidance for engaging into the work. So we drew from these resources to identify the key structures and components that we felt would benefit schools and districts in Connecticut. Our goal, like Lisa said, was really to create a tool that would support educators in the process of planning for improvement by developing an understanding of the strengths and the needs, and then identifying the possible root causes, and using this information to determine some possible solutions to really the complex problems that our schools and districts face. This knowledge can then guide the decision making so that resources are focused on solutions that close the gap for students and really help us provide success for all of our students. This tool is not only critical for the grant process like SIG and Commissioners Network, but we wanted it to be a useful tool for other districts in the state and other schools as they engage in the school improvement cycle and as they make decisions to allocate limited resources and identify the needs and the root causes. We began by developing a visual that sort of highlighted how cyclical in nature this process is. And you can see that little logo at the top right-hand side showing it's a continuous cycle. And we wanted to use this to identify those root causes that are just vital to school improvement. And then we developed the information in each of the steps of this cycle and the tools so that schools would be ready to use it. It was an iterative process with many voices and perspectives impacting the final product. And throughout the 6-month process, Greg and I discussed often how could we work within the agency, and we worked with others within the agency to develop this as online and an interactive toolkit so that we could provide easy access to everyone who wanted to use it, all of Connecticut's districts and schools. We also included professional learning links in each section of this toolkit so that teams would have the guidance and the resources to build their own capacity and ensure success with each step without additional support or impact. During the development, we found that seeking out feedback and including many voices was very vital to the process. We reached out to other states to hear about their process and learn from their experiences. We worked with our cross-divisional team there in the agency to gain perspectives from within our own agency. But the most important thing is we sought feedback from a variety of educators in our state. We had superintendents, administrators, coaches, and teachers review and provide feedback. And this feedback was then used to consider and drive all of the revisions of the toolkit and to help make it more concise, understandable, and user-friendly, as Lisa said, so that it would be actionable and ready to go. So now I want to turn it over to Greg, who's going to actually show you the toolkit and give you a quick tour of how it works. Greg?
Thank you, Carol, and thank you also, Lisa. I appreciate the lead into being able to show you where we house the toolkit on the website, as well as kind of give you a brief tour of that website. So this is a snippet, a picture of where it is housed on the turnaround website landing page, and I'm going to take us there now. So if you just give me 1 second to get out of there and pull up the actual website. Can you see that, Lisa?
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
If you can enlarge it a little bit, that would be helpful.
I sure can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect? Okay. So As you can see, the pathway, the cookie trail, starts at ct.gov /home, and then it goes to the Department of Education, K-12 education, school transformation, school improvement resources. And when you go into the school improvement resources, there is an actual landing page for the toolkit, as well as links down here for multiple different parts of what our toolkit houses. So upon clicking there, you have the individual links for each step that you can go through. Clicking on the introduction brings you to the entire toolkit altogether. So if I were to click on this, it would bring us a PDF of the entire 30-page toolkit with every single piece of resource that takes you all the way from the very beginning of introduction, all the way through step 5, which is our next steps, and where to go from there. And as you can see, each one of these steps includes an introductory video that Carol and I put together in order to offer that support, almost professional learning, to take you through individual pieces as well as what the entire Needs Assessment Toolkit is about. So if I were to click on this, it takes you to the actual toolkit itself. It has a table of contents that you can manipulate and work itself through, as well as it has each individual step. So we start here at the introduction and step 1, where do we get started? And it takes you all the way down to step 5. Now, what Carol had mentioned is upon all the feedback that we took from the focus groups, the superintendents, the teachers, individuals here at the cross-divisional team within the state, one of the last feedbacks that we got was that when we had originally housed it, it was a PDF document where people had to go in, they had to print it out, they had to sort of share it with that hard copy. And we really wanted to make this very functional with ease of use for each of the different sections. So we went back, we took that feedback, and now every single piece within the document is editable, so that you can pull it off and edit right directly into that PDF without downloading an app onto the computer. And it's able to share with other people as well. So you can edit and then reshare it with anybody else. So from the introduction, it takes you through every individual step. As you can see, there's different tables, there's different resources, as well as processes of where we kind of started and where it goes from the beginning of identifying where your needs assessment is and how to get to that root cause. So that is the toolkit. And what I'd like to do is actually show you one additional piece of the, don't want to save those changes because that will go on the main page. So each one of these, so I mentioned as you go into the introduction, you have each of the pieces. So if I clicked on step 1, I now have just gathering evidence. So if schools are in need of just this portion of the needs assessment and they want to go back to gathering additional evidence, they don't need to download the entire document. They now have individual steps as well as individual videos for additional support on how to maybe perhaps gather additional evidence that's more effective in terms of how to gather evidence. And each one of these steps has that PDF document. Has that PDF document for each step broken apart, and then each training video for those. The last piece that I would like to show you is this toolkit resources page. So this was also part of that feedback that we got, that people were interested in having these resources pulled directly from the entire toolkit. So now if a school or a district or even as little as a grade level needs to come in, they can download the entire document from here, or they can download just the individual editable portions, the graphic organizers that they might need. So if they need just a fishbone diagram from step 4, they can click on that and they now have that editable document that they can download and then share amongst their community and their organization to work on those. So that is our steps, as well as having a contact page here. My information is here for people to call if they have any questions around how to use this, what steps to go through, and where they would go from there. So I will then turn this back over to Lisa, and I'm going to reshare our PDF.
Thank you, Greg. And before I go into like what are our next steps, I do want to open it up to you all if you have any questions about the toolkit itself or its use.
Lisa, has any district actually tried the toolkit yet? Oh, they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, this is a requirement of our federal grant, our school improvement grant. So districts and schools had to collaborate in order to first determine what the root cause is, then submit a plan to us so that we can see, does the priorities and strategies align to what the root cause, what they're saying the root cause is.
Okay, good. Woody?
Could you give us an example of what kind of a problem or strength would be uncovered, what kind of a root cause, and how it would help the district to respond to that?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to turn it over to Carol because she was instrumental in kind of developing some of those examples. But really, Woody, it ranges from all aspects of school improvement, from attendance issues that a school or a district might be facing to curriculum issues. So what's great about this framework is it can be applied to just about every in school improvement scenario. So Carol?
Yeah, so one of the things we considered is a lot of times a school will have data that will indicate something. For example, I've been working a lot with third grade, so I'm going to use them as an example. Perhaps we're finding that our third grade students are performing low on math when they take the Smarter Balanced assessment. And we're wondering why that's the case. This toolkit guides them to resources that they might look at. So we want to go beyond what is the data on the Smarter Balance telling us, but let's go back and look at perhaps a focus group where our students have talked about how they feel about math and how engaged they've been with math. Let's go back and look at our resources that we're using in our curriculum and survey that to see if it's actually aligned to the standards, and is that alignment, is it equitable? Is it reaching our students and our varied student groups? So there are a lot of different pieces of information you might go back and pull. And then from that, you can look at that and say, well, let's start looking at what the causes might be. We may find that we dig into the demographics and there's a particular group of students that are underperforming. Or we might find that there's a group of students that are performing very high. How can we leverage and find out what is successful for them to help with the other students? So those are some examples, but it could be, as Lisa said, it could really be any challenge that a school is finding. It's like, let's make sure we're looking at a lot of the different sets of data to help us really determine what might the causes be.
I see. So it begins with the district being aware of the problem and then looking for the root cause rather than using this tool to find out what the problems are. Is that right?
Yeah.
Exactly. However, I will say, one of the things the toolkit does is it really encourages you to bring different voices to the table. And I think with that, sometimes different problems surface that schools might not be aware of. So I think just by the people you bring to the table can help gain insights into what the challenges might be.
I see,
I would also add that the fishbone diagram that Greg had shared that showed you within the toolkit, that also can uncover a true root cause. So you're coming in thinking this is the root cause, but by doing that fishbone diagram, you actually reveal there's a different root cause, and then it sets in motion those next steps.
I like it too, that it really does force a district that they have to utilize other folks. It really is not something one person could do. They're not going to get that far and be very complete with it without the utilization of other folks and, what the root causes are. So that's what I really like about it.
And we also were considerate in acknowledging that there may be biases. So whoever you bring to the table comes to the table with biases. Some may say, I've been in this district for 20 years. I know what the problem is. Or some may say,
a lot of them say that.
Yeah. So there are some assumptions. So we call that out. And that is part of the fidelity of this process, is called acknowledging those biases and really bringing a diverse group of stakeholders and evidence to the table to really drill down. It's a humbling experience for sure.
Lisa, I apologize if you had said this already and I just missed it. I did hear you say that it is a requirement of all districts that have school improvement grants. What is it that how do the districts show that they have gone through this process?
So in particular for the school improvement grants, they do upload it to the GMS system. And in particular, we have crafted the school improvement grant application for them to identify what the root cause is right in the plan, right next to the strategy. So anyone who's viewing it can look at it, okay, this is what the root cause is, this is what they want to do, here's the goal, and this is kind of how they're going to go about doing it. So we wanted to intentionally have that through line between, because then if not, if you're saying the root cause is X, but your strategy is not aligned, then that's where we can kind of follow up and have the continued conversation. What made you select this strategy if your root cause is this? Sometimes they make revisions to it. Other times they give more information and just wasn't captured accurately. So it definitely continues the conversation.
So you'll be monitoring these on the website as they go through the process. Is that right?
Correct. For those school improvement grant applications, yes. This was shared statewide. We have a rollout plan because we know that this isn't just we share it once and be done with it, and through osmosis they'll start implementing it. But we have just a tiered implementation of how we're going to go about implementing it, sharing it, and continuous feedback. If you haven't learned anything about the turnaround office other than we're always looking to improve and get feedback, we actually have a focus group scheduled, I believe, for February, right, Greg?
Yep.
So superintendents, principals, those have used it, bringing them back to the table and looking how else might we improve this? What's missing? What worked well? Because there's a lot of lessons to be learned that we can use not only for this tool, but for future tools as well.
Do you think that a district could share with the committee or with the board in the future how it helps them to?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
Excellent. So some of our, I'm sorry, go ahead, Erin.
No, I was just going to say, any other questions from the other members before Lisa continues?
Oh.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
So we just wanted to share some of the additional next steps. I already shared a couple as we were engaging this conversation. So we're going to continue to utilize this for grant submissions. So not only for our school improvement grant schools, but Commissioners Network, Alliance. It's not only within the turnaround office. I'll tell you that the cross-divisional team from across the agency had input on this, and they are using it with their stakeholders as well. So we'll continue to utilize them that way and continue to promote the toolkit in our technical assistance as we work with schools and districts. We also think it's important for us to be sharing this with higher education programs. We had stakeholders involved in the development of it that gave us feedback. So how might we leverage them as they continue on their education as leaders, whether school or district leaders? And then we're also looking for unique and additional ways to provide training. So not only in the turnaround office, but across the agency. And then lastly, refining the toolkit with feedback.
I love the idea of sharing it with the 093 and 092. That's very different and such great information. You know, I think back to long time ago when I was in school, that would have been information that was never even reviewed, really. That you found out after you sat in that position.
Yeah, Aaron, I was just gonna, of course, I've not been through either of any of those programs, but it's exactly what I was gonna say, right? I mean, it is exactly what we need for for leaders of schools and districts to be able to do. So having it in their training makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does. I really like that. I didn't realize that was in there, and that's great.
In essence, it's about knowing your community. When you better know your community and what the needs and strengths are, you're better able to plan and allocate resources, funding, and implement programming and resources that is impactful and truly addressing the root cause. So that can't be understated even more. It's just the knowing of your community.
So Lisa, is the sharing it with higher education, is that something that's a next step in all of this? Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a sense of how receptive they may be in terms of incorporating that into training?
We will see. I mean, we were intentional including some of them in the development of it. So they had, a say in putting their input in it, but we have several, existing partnerships. We have a teacher in residence right now in the turnaround office who is utilizing that with her own cohort. So there's a lot of different avenues I think we can leverage here. Anything else? So I know what my next steps are. We'll be looking for a district or a school that we can invite back to share their process. And I will work with Irene and Aaron to schedule that.
Good.
Yeah, that'll be a nice idea. We always see it when it's completed. They come to us when they're in the process or done. And, accountability hears them, and then it goes to the full board. It would nice to hear the whole board hear the process and what they felt like it. I mean, it is a lot of work. I mean, I know that from just when we go out on our visits, they reference it often. When you go with Lisa, you'll see the folks say something to her about, having to do this one and having to do this section. And now you'll know what they're referring to on those visits. So it is a lot of work, but it's good work.
Sure. Well, thank you.
So what's our role? What's our role? Are we recommending this to the board, that the board approve it, or what?
No, this was honestly a ton of work went into it, and it is the basis for a lot of our school improvement work. So we wanted to take this opportunity to share it with accountability and support, given all the work and the presentations and the visits that you have with the alliance districts and charters. This is truly the foundation. So we wanted to share it with you so that, as you're having conversations and as they're coming before us, you're in the know.
Okay,
and please, if you have any feedback, have some time to look through it, please feel free to share that with us as well.
Okay.
Woody, as we see districts come in front of us for accountability support, or if you go on a school visit, you'll hear this referenced often. So it's a nice idea to understand, to have some kind of idea of what they're referencing when they say, just the last time that Lisa and I were at the school, it was a real good visit, but she reminded them this is just a piece of the toolkit, and she'll always remind them. And so this will give you an idea of the things that perhaps we don't see as board members, their responsibilities and what they have to put into it. So you'll get used to hearing these pieces and really key on, like sort of drill in on certain ones of interest and how they accomplished them or perhaps didn't accomplish them.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question to that, Aaron, because I think you're sort of pseudo in my head today. Which is a clarifying question is, how long has this needs assessment tool been out and before them? Is this new, or has it been something that they've had the opportunity or requirement to engage with for quite some time?
So I will say that it's been under a year that it has been released. And since the release, as Greg mentioned, we did make some edits. So they are using it, but we have been very transparent with them that we are looking for feedback and continuously improving it.
Great. Because I was just thinking, Erin, as you were saying about, as schools come before us, what sort of assumptions should we be making in terms of the sorts of questions that we could be asking of them in terms of their engagement with the tool, things that we might be having our ears perked for, et cetera, help us as board members to do those sort of probing questions to be the accountability sort of committee that we're here to be.
Right. Sure, absolutely. And while not every district or school is mandated to use this tool, we mandate certain ones based on the requirements. Needs assessments are just in general a best practice for district and school improvement. So while they may not necessarily, I'm not just calling any district out in your conversations, you don't necessarily need to say, have you completed the needs assessment toolkit, but talk to us about your needs assessment or root cause analysis that your team engaged in. Who did you engage in? What kind of evidence did you use and what did you find? So I think it's, as a practitioner, to me, it's about the practice and not so much the report that comes before us.
For sure.
So what did you learn throughout this process and how honest and transparent were you with that? And then how is it connected to what you're doing?
Yeah, agreed.
I would just like to add and I guess close with just recognizing Lisa and her leadership and the vision really to bring this forward and the collective work with Carol and Greg, because this is fast and furiously becoming a model for other states as they're looking to design similar needs assessment toolkits as aligned with their own ESSA state plans. So again, I just want to take a moment to commend Lisa and the team in this work, because this was a significant lift and a project of love, a passion project. And we are direct beneficiaries of this work.
Yes, thank you. Great team. Thank you. Anything else from board members? Okay, we can motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And we'll see you. I'll see some of you at office hours, and some of you see you next year at our next meeting.
Take care, all. Happy holidays.
Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.